On Pro V Offshore this week, we look back at the final two races of the Middle East Cup. And we come here to Exmouth, where amongst several attractions, the British contingent take part in a national event. They prepare for the start of the European season. For the third round of the Middle East Cup, the teams returned to Abu Dhabi, and our race commentator Eric Michel followed the action. The question was, could the Niccolinis maintain their dominant form?
The sea conditions couldn't have been more different for the teams here in Abu Dhabi. Back when the first round of the Middle East Cup took place, there were strong winds and 2-metre waves. Now calm water played right into the hands of the Victory catamaran, running for the Class 2 Middle Eastern Championship honours. In Pro V, Zanoff and Niccolini pulled off the course with severe vibrations coming from the drive system, and as expected, the two BMW-powered Victory Cats roared off into the distance, leaving the remaining 27 entries from Pro V Class 2 and 3 in their wake. Saeed Al-Taya had taken the Class 2 lead in Victory M1, but Ali Nasser in M7 kept close behind, preparing for a lead challenge later in the race. The Q80 Pro V entry of Omani and Dakhil in their Italian-built Butzi Hull benefited from Luca Niccolini's misfortune and moved up to 4th place. Catastrophe struck for Matteo Niccolini and the Emirates Pro V rookie Ahmed Al-Sawaidi, who had split the Victory Cats for the opening 2 laps. A turbo let go in spectacular style, and they were out. They could only watch helplessly as the Victory boats disappeared into the distance, and the Q80 entry M44 inherited their position. But none of this seemed to dampen Al-Sawadi's enthusiasm for Pro V, and he's now reported to be planning an entry of his own for the next Pro V season. This would prove to be the best performance so far for the Q80s in any Pro V competition in the Middle East. So a win for Ali Nasser and Ali Al-Kama in M1, with Saeed Al-Taya and Mohammed Al-Marai on number 7 taking 2nd place for Class 2 honours. In Pro V, Norwegian Attelstaff had driven well, considering that his regular driver, Eivind Smedstad, had been replaced due to illness, and stand-in 26-year-old Thomas Olsen had had to learn on the job. But the results spoke for themselves, and a first-place home in Pro V was just reward. Second in Pro V and 4th overall came Abdul Latif Almani and Jassim Dakhil in their Butzi Ridge, confirming one of their best race results in recent years, although sadly denying them the podium. Zanoff and Niccolini managed to crawl back to the pit. The Bulgarian driver feared they'd broken a propeller, but the problem turned out to be a transmission fault. And for the fastest Pro V boat on the water, this had indeed turned out to be a disappointing day.
So, Staff gets his 20 points in round 3, but the Italians had both done enough to be classified, and in the overall standings, the Norwegian is left with only an outside chance of snatching the title in the last round. So the win in race 3 brought some much-needed points for Attelstaff, especially after his retirement in race 1 on the same course. In the last show, we saw my motoring colleague, Vicky Butler-Henderson, take her emergency dunk test in preparation for her Pro V debut. And with that scary experience behind her, the next step was to meet her boat. A 24-foot V8-powered rocket ship entered in the new Pro V Lights category.
I think it's beautiful. And it's all mine. And it's got my name on it, so that's very lovely. Wow. It looks very, very, very fast. Excellent. I'm very much liking it. It's looking good. Oh,
Sexy looking thing, isn't it?
very sexy. Really sleek. I'm quite surprised at how familiar it is. The smell and the fact that it's got a wheel and a dashboard and some sort of, you know, roof. It's quite similar to a racing car, she says, having just sat in it.
And what's different?
The fact that it's got these great big things along the side rather than any wheels. But the smell, the oily, petrol-y, that sort of smells very much the smell of a racing car, and it's a smell that I like.
Does it make you want to go racing?
It definitely makes me want to go racing. Oh yeah. But I'm rather scared that it's going to be very, very fast. It feels fast.
Vicky will be guided through her powerboat debut in this new junior category by Mike Mantle. This beautiful machine was designed in Sweden and, like its big Pro V brother, has a full safety capsule.
It's easy to drive. It's got a power steering system, so it's easier than any ordinary boat. Hydraulic system.
Yeah.
You've only got three controls. You've got a steering wheel, a throttle, and a trim button, this big thing on the side here. And that's all you need. Keep your eyes closed.
Yeah. Brilliant.
No, Vicky's boat isn't named after her favourite drink, but after the Vee One Design Class Association. And her first opportunity to see her race machine came at a test in Southampton. The adrenaline was already pumping, and she needed to use the time to forge some team spirit with Mike. In a few weeks' time, they will be in a full-blown race in Cowes at the oldest and most prestigious powerboat race in the world. Time to don the race suit.
Oh, that sounds nice. Lovely. I'll have some of that. Just jump in.
The Pro V Light was designed by Åke Mannerfelt in Sweden, and the first ones out on the water quickly became known as Bat boats, and it's easy to see why. The monohull design has sweeping wings to give the craft lift in calmer conditions. And while it looks pretty, this is no hairdryer of a boat. The power comes from a 5.7-litre V8 Chevy tuned by Volvo Penta, with double counter-rotating propellers on a single drive. Vicky will be hitting speeds of up to 80 miles an hour, but she's going to need all the experience she can get. Vicky is in safe hands. Mike has been competing in large powerboats for over 20 years, and he'll be doing the driving, controlling the boat with a foot throttle and a dash-mounted trim to adjust the angle of the propeller in the water. It's highly manoeuvrable, agile, and very competitive in rough water conditions. Vicky was clearly itching to get her hand on the wheel and her foot on the throttle. In the race, she would be Mike's navigator, and there'll be more training for that yet to come. But right here and now, the temptation was too great. It was out of the harnesses and a quick swap round so that Vicky could get a feel of the considerable power on tap in this beautiful winged machine. It takes some time to get used to the variety of settings on the boat, and she was clearly enjoying a rare opportunity to get some real test experience. I just wondered how Vicky would react to her first run. I think duck to water would be the right expression.
Thank you very much. That was mega. Really mega. Excellent. Excellent.
Now, I know what Vicky can do in a car. Well, in the racing sense anyway. But in a V24 powerboat, I remain to be convinced. Welcome back to Pro V Offshore, where the final race in Dubai would conclude the 4-round Middle East Series. But Atle Staff would have his work cut out if he wanted to take the title back to Norway. Eric Michel takes us through the final countdown.
Some 28 boats had entered for the final race, made up of 3 classes: Class 2, Pro V, and the 6-litre division of Class 3. While the Pro V boats still remain within the Class 2 category, the monohull team's need for Pro V was never more clearly demonstrated than here in Dubai. For this, the concluding round of the Middle Eastern Cup. The 2 Class 2 Victory Cats moved forward at the start, while Atle Staff showed his turn of speed, edging ahead of Matteo Nicolini in M9. This race had all the makings of being the best Emirates event so far for the Norwegian team. Staff had his old teammate Ivan Smedster back in the driving seat, and while the pressure was on, Staff was unaware that Matteo Nicolini had made the wrong prop choice for the race. Over the 82 nautical miles, the smaller diameter propeller chosen for the Italian Sea Racer 32 would see the M9 team at a distinct disadvantage when it came to overall speed. But Matteo Nicolini had Dubai-based Ahmed Al-Sawaidi driving for him once again, and this pairing seized every opportunity to make up distance through skillful teamwork and driving whenever they could. The Kuwaiti team of Abdul Latif Omani and Jassim Dakhil were also back on the water, regular competitors in both Middle East and World Championships here in the UAE. Their boat, M44, is one of a number from the Italian stable of Fabio Gutti. and powered by a 1,050 horsepower C-Tech diesel. Bulgarian driver Christian Zanov, with Luca Nicolini in the Sea Racer M8, could not make any impression on the speed of the double-capsuled machine of Matteo Nicolini, and had to settle for third place in class throughout the final race. Staff couldn't rest for a moment. Behind him, the constant pressure of Matteo Nicolini, while in front was the tantalizing possibility of challenging the second-place victory boat. The calming sea conditions were also favouring catamarans, and there was nothing the Italians could do to change matters. On top of that, elder brother Luca in M8 was suffering from an underperforming engine, which had put him a lap down, but still ahead of the Q8 in the FTSE M44. By the three-quarter mark in this final round of the Middle East Cup here in Dubai, the two victory catamarans had developed such a lead that they would soon start to lap the Pro V entries. The combination of calm water and a massive power advantage for the BMW Cat really demonstrated the problems that are now experienced by Class 2 competitors, and the need for a more equitable form of competition. It could be that we're witnessing the end of Class 2 as we know it, and at the same time, the evolution of Pro V as a level playing field on which the powerful inboard monohulls can compete. Victory M1 had now lapped up as far as the third-place Pro V of Zanov and Nicolini. The Norwegian team had very nearly lost the advantage gained from a well-earned first in class when, for no clear reason, driver Ivan Smedster's race harness came loose during the event. Coupled with this, Smedster was reported to be feeling the effects of a 30 degrees centigrade ambient temperature, which is very much higher in the cockpit. The victory team had succeeded on their home waters yet again, with Saeed Al-Tayr coming in second, but no one could take away the superb performance of Ivan Smedster and Atul Star, and a well-deserved third place on the podium. Their success was not enough to displace Matteo Nicolini from taking the Pro V Middle Eastern Cup.
So the chance of a second overall victory here in the Middle East falls away from the Norwegians and into the hands of the Italian team headed by Matteo Nicolini, who was given valuable Pro V experience from two new Emirates drivers. So glory in the Middle East goes to Italy, while British hopes of retaining their Euro Cup were on display in a shakedown race off the coastline of Exmouth. In all forms of motorsport, pre-season testing is absolutely essential, and it's no less so here in Pro V offshore. It's just no good turning up with a gleaming piece of machinery if you don't know how it handles after the off-season rebuild. To get a feel of what the teams get up to, and perhaps a hint of things to come, we paid a visit to a shakedown race in Exmouth on Britain's south coast, where Chris Charlesworth and Simon Fletcher and Chris Peters and Tony Dowley were joined by some new kids on the block. A new British team joined the experienced Thunderstorm and Thunderbird outfits this weekend, as Miles Jennings and Jamie Edwards are running this petrol-engined Cougar Euro call. Both have plenty of experience in other forms of powerboat racing, but it'll still be a steep learning curve for the pair, and this race provides valuable experience for the year ahead.
A few years ago I raced in Class 2 with Fabergé, and the thrill and sensation of a large, big, noisy boat is just, unbeatable. And the desire just to get back was just, just had to get there. And I think with the Pro V, it's been coming on leaps and bounds over the last year. And well, it's a pretty calipid, 34-foot boat with knocking 1,000 horsepower is raw adrenaline. Really exciting, and what powerboat racing is all about. We've burned the midnight oil just to get the boat here, and today is very much a first test for us out together. Not just as a team and how we operate together, but also the boat, the setup. There's an awful lot of things we've got to learn. So today we're going to be, I'm afraid, making numbers, but having fun along the way.
You've chosen petrol power as opposed to diesel. What was the thinking behind that?
Oh, there's no choice. I'm a petrol head through and through. The rumble of a V8. I couldn't have an old diesel. That's just not me. No, just not British. We want to go out this year and have some fun, get to know the boat, do the series, and then next year, we can play around with some modifications and go from there. But certainly, we want to do, make Pro V a truly worldwide series. The thought of racing in Dubai when everybody else is shivering in England is very appealing.
The Thunderstorm team had done some winter testing, but were clearly aware of the need for this shakedown race.
Well, it's been a long time since we've been in the boat racing. We've done some testing. We really just can't simulate the race conditions with that kind of testing. So we really just want to get our feet wet a bit and get back into the swing of it. We need some reasonably rough conditions because we do all our testing in Southampton water in the flat. So really we just need to get bouncing up and down a bit and get a feel for the boat and some other competitors. For the horsepower limit this year, we're expected to be much more competitive. So it's very important that we get the boat working as well as it possibly can with the horsepower. And then hopefully we'll have an edge on everybody else.
The sea conditions looked ideal for a strong, competitive race, but there seemed to be no sign of Edwards and Jennings at the start line. Eric Michel picks up the action.
Right from the off, it was clear that this was going to be no quiet little test session. No evidence of after you clawed from Chris Peters and Tony Dowley in their bright yellow machine Thunderbird. The power of the big V8 at Dowley's fingertips. Conditions were near perfect for a challenging monohull race. With Jennings and Edwards still puzzling over their new Eurocore Cougar back in the launching pit, the competition here would take the form of a match race, a head-to-head fight between Chris Charlesworth and Simon Fletcher in Thunderstorm and Peters and Dowley in Thunderbird. It was near-perfect monohull weather. The course set was anti-clockwise, 5 laps, a total distance of 28.7 nautical miles. Towards Exmouth Harbour, Peters and Dowley made their first challenge, running on the shore side of the course, perhaps looking for calmer waters to give them a little more speed. And now they moved ahead. Charlesworth concentrated on the start-finish gate. But here came the first confusion of the day. Both teams missed the marker buoy, and as Peters turns the yellow hull into the centre of the course, Charlesworth realises the error and swerves back out onto the course again. It all happened in a matter of seconds, but then things do when you compete at around 100 miles an hour. Now Thunderstorm had the lead and turned east onto the second lap. Dowley had reacted quickly, and Chris Peters steered Thunderbird onto the inside line of the course. Back at the launching pit, the Cougar of Miles Jennings and Jamie Edwards had been craned up, a broken steering system the cause of their problems. While out on the course, the two Cougars, M2 and M14, were about to lock horns once again. This was not even a championship race, merely designed as a pre-season test session. But it was turning into a duel, a fascinating insight, giving us all an idea of just how close the forthcoming Pro V Euro Cup was likely to be. And it was proving to be incredibly close, a moment's loss of concentration, the difference between winning and losing. Seated behind Chris Charlesworth, his teammate Simon Fletcher, one of the most experienced throttlemen of his age. In Thunderbird, Tony Dowley controls a V8 Chevy, supercharged and petrol-powered, two totally different power plants, and yet it seemed that at last a solution had been found for diesel to raise petrol on level terms. The formula derived from a balance of power to weight, and it's this concept which uniquely allows superchargers to run in an international class in Europe. Once more, Dowley challenged for the lead, and again it was clear to see that his boat had the speed to outrun Thunderstorm on this section of the course. Then, just as things were beginning to go their way, another navigational problem occurred. Peters swung the wheel over and turned a full 360 degrees to come back onto the correct course. A dramatic change of fortunes for Charlesworth, who steered clear of Thunderbird, and now suddenly they were leading again, with Tony Dowley hard on the throttle, chasing after his rivals on a stretch of course he knew would be hard pushed to make up the distance on. While both these Cougars are very similar, the choice of drive systems is very different and intensely personal to the team. As a major component in the drivetrain, decisions have to be made early on in the fitting of the race boat as to just what type of system to specify. Here today, we were seeing two very different power and drive systems so closely matched, and sometimes it was easy to forget that there were just two boats left in this test run. Now Chris Peters swung the charging Thunderbird onto the tight inside line. Dowley made a quick trim change, and with the responsive 8-litre Chevy giving him masses of power on tap, he eased up alongside his rival. Simon Fletcher will have seen yellow looming large in his left-hand mirror, and that will have been followed shortly by the actual bow moving into his peripheral vision. Then, with one more adjustment to the throttles, Dowley urged Thunderbird past, while his driver anxiously scanned the water ahead for any sign of those lobster pots approaching, which for Chris Peters would mean as almost 100 miles per hour. Whatever the thoughts of Charlesworth and Fletcher were at this stage were kept within the confines of their communication system. As defending Pro V European champions, they now knew that the competition was going to be tough in the season ahead. ahead. This shakedown race had confirmed their suspicions about just one of their rivals. There were no mistakes for either team at the harbour turn this time. Chris Peters and Tony Darley would lead up until the last lap, when, concerned at a sudden loss of power, they stopped to investigate, and this allowed Thunderstorm to pass them once more. Even though there turned out to be nothing wrong, there just wasn't enough time left for Darley to charge again and take the lead before the checkered flag finally fell in what had been a superb day's racing. A win is a win, but Charlesworth and Fletcher must have looked back with some relief and viewed the day's activities as a real indication of what lay ahead.
But going out on the outward leg, Simon seemed to be able to run pretty quick, so we tried to stay with him. Then when we turned at the top end of the course and came back into the head sea, we were definitely quicker, because again Simon can't trim because he's got the Trimax drive. We've obviously got a Mercruiser drive on there which we can keep the nose down. But I think about lap 5, I think we haven't had too much luck with engines lately, and I felt like I was losing power. But I think it was just driver unfamiliarity with the equipment, basically.
Chris, there was, for both teams, some navigational moments, shall we call them, today. Talk me through yours.
Well, on the first outward leg, I said to Tony, I said either he's got it wrong or I've got it wrong, but he had it wrong. But coming back down to the start and finish gate was a bit of a problem, because all the way from about sort of a mile out, it was full of lobster pods. So you're concentrating not running over the lobster pods. Then when you pop your head up, there's just boats everywhere. You've got a small marker buoy, and you've got a gate to go through. We found the marker buoy, but I didn't know which side of the gate we were, because I couldn't find the other mark.
So, no joy for the new boys and an easy win for Charlesworth and Fletcher. But the real test comes at round 1 of the European Cup at Poole. For all the inside stories, log on to proveoffshore.com.